Yeah.
When you're working in After Effects, you'll definitely end up with projects that have a lot of different source files and a lot of different layers. If your project doesn't look like my screen, just double-click on the H+ Sport AI file in your project panel. Now, the only way to maintain your sanity is to keep some level of organization. So that's what we're going to focus on in this project, maintaining organization. There are two levels of organization inside of After Effects. There's the level of organization within your project panel itself, and then there's the level of organization with your source files in and of themselves. Since After Effects references external source files from Photoshop or Illustrator or video files, it's really important that those files maintain an organized structure on your hard drive itself. Now, I'm going to switch to the Finder on the Mac operating system. In Windows, obviously, you just want to use your Explorer. Now, the way I've organized the projects for all of this training series, everything lives inside this exercise files folder. And then for each individual project, we've saved the projects into individual folders. Now, all of these different projects are referencing a footage folder. Now, anytime I would move these files around, I would move the exercise files folder along with everything else inside of it. Usually when I'm working with After Effects projects, I'll create a folder that looks like this. And I'll just have an additional folder for my After Effects project. That way, anytime I'll create a new project, I'll just name the project whatever it is, and then in there, I'll have my Photoshop documents, my Illustrator files, my video files. Basically, anything that After Effects is going to reference is going to be contained inside of this main folder. Okay, so now let's jump back into After Effects and look at how we can organize our files within our projects. As you can see in my project panel here, I've got a folder, 2 compositions, an Illustrator file, and a video file. Now I have a general structure that I like to use for all of my projects, so I'll share that with you. I'm going to go down to the bottom of this project panel and just create a folder. If you click on the folder icon, it'll automatically create an empty folder, untitled, and everything will be highlighted, so all we have to do is just start typing to name. So let's call this folder Graphics. To set the name, you can just press Return on your keyboard. Then notice the project panel will automatically reorganize itself based on the name. That's because of this menu right here. If I click and drag on the right side of my project panel, notice I have a couple different options in terms of what I could look at in a project. So I could organize by name just by clicking on the name. And each time I click, the arrow here will change and show me whether or not I'm organizing it alphabetically from the top down or from the bottom up. I could also organize by type, or file size, or frame rate. You get the idea. Any of these you could choose. Now I'm going to click back on name. Another way to look for files is to click up here in this search option. Let's say I wanted to look for a specific graphic. I could type the word stare, and sure enough, there's my graphic. It happens to be a video file, but you can see that's how you can search for elements. Just remember when you're searching that you have something in here in the search field. So our project isn't empty. Just go all the way to the right here and click on the X to clear out that name, and then you can see everything in your project. So with our graphics folder created, I want to add my Illustrator file into that folder. So I'm just going to click and drag up to drag that into the graphics folder. Now I can click the triangle and see that my Illustrator file is in there. Now we have this composition down here called Training Swoosh. If I double click on that comp, I can see these layers. Now the layers appear in the timeline, and I can go ahead and collapse layer 3 so you can see more of the layers. I'm going to collapse my project panel back towards the left just by clicking and dragging. Now, layers in the layer hierarchy of your timeline can also be found in your project panel just by right-clicking on the layer and then choose Reveal Layer Source in Project. This works with referenced external files. There are certain things that you can create inside of After Effects. When you click on the layer, you may not be able to find it in your project panel. But since we imported this as a Photoshop document, it's in here. So I know this Training Swoosh Layers folder contains Photoshop files. So I'm going to go ahead and close this folder, and I'm going to drag this folder up into the graphics folder. My Training Swoosh composition does have those layers loaded into it, but if I wanted to add another copy of any one of those layers, I could go ahead and open that folder and just drag the layer down into my layer hierarchy. So these are separate from the composition. So I'm just going to press Command Z to undo. So we can go ahead and collapse that. Now we've organized our graphics. I want to automatically add this video file into a folder called video. So I'm going to click on the file and drag it down to the folder icon. Now when I let go of my mouse, it's automatically dropped that file into the untitled folder. Let's rename this video. The last thing we need to do is create a folder for our compositions. So if you go down to the bottom of the project panel, we'll click the Create Folder icon again. And since we had just created the video folder, notice it put it underneath. That's fine. Let's go ahead and name this AAA underscore output underscore comps. Now the reason I called it that is because I know I like to keep things organized by name. So that's why I had AAA at the start. And then output comps lets me know that these are the projects I'm going to actually create my files or output files from. So let's press return to set that. And then I'll click and drag down in the project panel to drag it out from underneath my video folder. Now we can collapse our video folder and drag our training swoosh into our output comps, and then do the same for our empty comp1 composition. If we open our output comps again, we could rename our comp1 file just by clicking on it and then pressing return. So let's call this training underscore title and press return. So when it comes to getting organized in After Effects, the thing you need to remember, organization starts in the file browser. You want to always keep your referenced files organized in a folder relatively close to your After Effects project. Then maintaining order inside your project just becomes a matter of mastering the project panel and creating folders.